is an eminent chartered accountant. He also possesses a vast experience and expertise of Indian capital markets, Indian economy, project financing and financial and banking sector. Over the years, he has served on various committees of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, National Stock Exchange, BSE Brokers Forum, Management and other professional institutions. Can you tell us the importance of annual report?
The annual report is very, very important for anybody to take any investment decision in that company. Because apart from only the financials, that is the profit and loss account and balance sheet, the report also contains the auditor's report with or without the qualification, the director's report, the management discussions, the cash flow statement of the company, and notes by which, if you read properly the whole report, it can help you a lot in taking the investment decision.
So please can you tell us what do you see in an audit report?
Audit report, as I just said in the first question itself, contains lot of information. Number one and most important is to go through the auditor's report. The auditor's report gives you whether everything is in order in the company. Like if there is something wrong or something violation of the laws, rules and regulations, the auditor will reflect it by way of qualification in the audit report. So that is very important. Then whether the company has given loans to the interested parties, whether the terms and conditions are not prejudicial to the interest of the company, all those things have to be seen in audit report.
Why one must read director's report?
Director's report gives the entire mission, vision, what has happened in the company, what is going to happen in the company. Same way the management discussion, which is also equally important. Then you come to the profit and loss account, the entire working, the profitability of the company for the whole year is there in the P&L. Then you come to the balance sheet, which also gives the financial status, the statement of affairs is on a particular date, mostly the 31st March every year. And then the cash flow, the notes to the accounts, all those things are very important. It contains in the annual report. Director's report highlights, number one, the analysis of the financials in a brief. Then it gives what happened, any change in the capital structure of the company, any change in the business plans, what the company pursue in future, director's responsibility statement, any auditor's qualification is there, then the note and comment on that qualification of the auditors in that report. And then coupled with this is also expresses its thanks, gratitude to the people who have helped the company achieve the results. And then nowadays there is another report which is also affixed to the director's report.
Sir, what do you mean by corporate governance report?
The corporate governance report is very, very important because it is a compulsory for all the listed companies. A company has to be corporate governed company. It should be a corporate governance compliant company. Clause 49 of the listing agreement comes in picture in the corporate governance, and most important of which is the status of the directors. You know, how many interested directors are there, how many non-interested directors are there, how many meetings of board of directors were held, how many committee meetings were held, what is the composition of the various committees, and whether the company is fully corporate governance compliant or it is governing as per the rules the whole affairs of the corporate. So the corporate governance report, and especially in the context of now with the CSR compulsory coming in, the importance of the corporate governance report increases a lot. And mind you well, many large institutional investors, they invest in a company, they would like to invest in a company which is fully compliant of clause 49 or for that matter the full corporate governance.
Can you briefly tell us what is management discussion?
A few years back the management discussion has been added in the part of the report from the management, which analyzes the results of the company in brief. What has happened last year, why something went wrong, why something was very good, is there any change in the composition of the business. They discuss everything, the global business, the domestic business, the opportunities, and there is a SWOT analysis, the strength, opportunities, threats and weakness in the company, which the directors themselves pursue. And there are answers to those threats and what opportunity the company is looking at. So this all comes in the management discussion, the risk management system which the company is following, various procedures, manuals, guidelines, policy matters. This all comes into the corporate, the management discussions, which is very important for making an investment decision.
What does shareholding pattern signify?
Shareholding pattern is a very, very important tool to assess and see that how the company is owned. In earlier days, there used to be a proprietary system. A proprietor used to own the entire company. But in this corporate culture, the capital market culture, the ownership of the company is divided into units that are known as shares. So who hold the shares? Whoever hold the shares of this company are the owners. So what is the percentage of the promoter holding? What is the percentage of the institutional holding? High retail HNI holding, less than 1 lakh rupees value retailers holding. It gives you the clear picture that how much confidence the investor has on management. Large number of shareholders, small shareholders, they continue to be there in that percentage. Institutional investment in that company. This all signifies that they have confidence in the management and what is the percentage of the management holding. If the management holding, promoter's holding is very less, say below 40%, then it shows as if the promoters do not have much stake in this company. Whereas a very large stake also signifies that the promoters really do not bother for others. They are literally owning the entire company. And SEBI has recently come out with the guidelines that minimum 25% for a private sector company has to be in the hands of public, and in case of government public sector companies 10% minimum has to be in the hands of the public.
What do you look in profit and loss account?
Profit and loss account is a very, very important statement. It gives the entire profitability working of the company in the entire financial year, or for that matter in that period for which it has been taken care of. So what you look in profit and loss account? You look about the top line of the company, which means the turnover. The services or the manufacturing activity of the company gets reflected into the form of a revenue. Any other income is there. Then you look at the composition of the raw material or the input cost. Then what is the administrative cost, selling and marketing cost, and the finance cost. I mean, whether how much interest the company is paying, whether high interest, low interest. Then, with that you can work out various ratios. And finally, those ratios help you in making your decision whether to invest in that company or not. When you compare with the previous year figure, which is compulsory and mandatory to give, you can know whether the company is progressing. Like previous year, if you have seen in a company a turnover of 100 crore and this year it is 120 crore, you feel you can take a view that the company is growing. But the same growth should be there in the operating profit, in the net profit. What is the tax liability of the company? All these things you can see in the profit and loss account, and it is a very, very important barometer.
As an investor, what should I see in a balance sheet?
As I said, profit and loss account, yes. Same way the balance sheet is also very, very important, because as on a particular date, it gives the statement of affair of that company, state of affairs of that company. Most important is the capital composition, the capital structure. What is the equity capital? If any preferential capital is there, then what is the debt on the company, the secured loan, unsecured loan. Some of the part of the unsecured loan can be from the promoters and the interested party and the shareholders also. Then the balance sheet gives you the fixed asset position of the company, the gross position, the depreciation, and the net position of the this thing. Then it gives the complete current assets breakup of the company. As on that day, what was the debtors position, the stock, the loans and advances, bank balances and cash balances. So all this important figure gives the state of the health of the company, how healthy the company is. What is the leverage? Like suppose the equity capital of the company is say 10 crore and the reserves are 90 crore. It's very healthy. I mean the book value becomes 100 rupees of this. But at the same time, if the debt is 250 crore, then suddenly you can make a judgment that the company is over leveraged. So you have to analyze accordingly. You have to do the comparative study. You are not to be happy only by seeing a large capital or large reserves, but vis-a-vis you have to also see the leveraging position of the company also. Similarly, whether the debtors are too high or too low. Suppose the sales of the company which you read in the profit and loss account is say 300 crore. Now in a normal course, the debtor should be 60 crore or 80 crore. But if you find the book debts of 110 crore, 120 crore, it means the realization is taking too much of a time. So you can make a judgment on that. Similarly, on the inventory also, how many times the inventory is churned. So that also gives you position. The loans and advances is very, very important given, because if they are given to the related parties, the associate companies or the subsidiary companies, and on which no interest is charged, then a company is wasting unnecessarily its funds. So you have to see the loans and advances very, very carefully in the balance sheet. So these are the important things in the balance sheet.
What do you mean by contingent liability, and can you just give us some examples?
A very good question. On contingent liability shows the liability which is slightly ascertained but not fully ascertainable, which might happen by certain happenings in future, and it has not been provided for in the books. So in any eventuality, at least you can be prepared that there is a like suppose company has given a counter guarantee to somebody. Now if something happens, the company might have to pay that much money, or the contracts remaining to be executed. Like suppose company has given a contract of 100 crore to somebody and paid only 20 crore advance. So the 80 crore is company's liability. Of course, it will receive the asset also, but then eventually cash flow will get affected to that extent, and whether the company is prepared for that. Or any such thing which is the quantity is not ascertainable, the things has finally not taken place but might take place in future and involve the company towards the financial liability, is in contingent liability, which is very also very important to read.
Why cash flow is important?
Cash flow statement gives how the company spent its cash during the financial year. How much money either it has raised as a capital, how much money it has spent on the fixed assets or investments, how many debtors it has realized, whether the realization of debtors was in uniformity or as per the normal practice of the company. Creditors, how much it paid less money this year or more money this year, or whether it has put the cash flow, the cash generation for long-term investment or a short-term investment, whether there is a liability mismatch, long-term, short-term mismatch. All these things can come in the cash flow. Many a time we read negative cash flow. Now negative cash flow means that you put the normal cash which the company is making, and you put in for long-term assets. So the current cash flow has become negative. So this is also gives you a proper, it's a very important analytical tool, to go through the cash flow and to come to know about the working style of the company and how do they spend their cash.
Can you please tell us different ratios from the investor's point of view?
Yes, ultimately all the statements which you have been referring, especially the profit and loss account and balance sheet, finally one can analyze only by way of ratios, because ratio only can help you in making a comparative study. So if you look at the profit and loss account, there are certain ratios, like what is the EBITDA to the sales. Now if you know that EBITDA to the sales or revenue is at 20%, you can check the same with the peer companies, whether somebody is 18%, somebody is 22%. So where do you place this company? Similarly, the same ratio to sales can be applied for the net profit, profit before tax, after tax. So this is one revenue, kind of ratios which you can calculate and then compare with others. There are ratios of how much raw material itself is the component of the sales. The higher raw material ratio, the lesser capacity of the company to make money. Suppose if the raw material itself is 90%, or in case of a gold and jewelry companies, where the raw material is 96, 97, 98%. So they have to play only within those 2 or 3%. So their profit making capacity become very less, and the efficiency only has to be added to increase the profit within that range. Whereas a low input cost company, low raw material company has huge leverage to make higher profits by increasing the efficiency, reducing the labor cost, reducing the administrative cost and marketing cost. So these are the some of the profit and loss account ratios. When we come to the balance sheet ratios, in balance sheet, as I explained earlier, what is the debtors ratio, debtors churning ratio, what is the inventory churning ratio, what is the gearing ratio, the leverage ratio, which also I explained to some extent in my talk earlier. is like I gave the example of, say, if a company is having a capital of say 10 crore, the reserves of maybe 20 crore, so 30 crore, against which it has a long-term secured debt other than the working capital debt of say 100 crores. It is over-leveraged company. It may break any time because it has to service on 100 crore with a net worth of only 30 crore.
As you said, a company has to have a proper balanced leverage ratio. So please can you explain what is this leverage ratio and what kind of coverage is it required?
Exactly, I explained some time back that leveraging, over-leveraging, under-leveraging, it means you are leveraging your capacity to raise. And that capacity is your equity and your reserves. It means your net worth. So if your net worth is say 30 crore, reasonably you are expected to raise long-term debt of say 30 to 45 crore in a normal course, because you can service that. When you have this kind of equity and reserves, naturally your profits also must be good. But if you say, if your capacity is say 20 crore, you may raise 30 crore, but you don't even raise 10 crore of loan. So it is under leveraged company. I mean, non-debt company or debt-free company, which is also not looked very positively by an investor. It means you don't have any growth plan. If it means that you don't want to take a debt and also expand your business also. You just want to play only with your own funds, which may be safe, but may not be always good. So on a 30 crore of net worth, that is equity and reserves, a 45 crore debt can be considered to be reasonably leveraged. 60 may not be very high leverage, and if you take 15, it may be low leveraged.
Sir, can you elaborate on current ratio?
Current ratio is the ratio of your current assets and current liabilities. Current assets means your stock, your book debt, loans, advances, cash balance. This is whole current assets. And current liability is your creditors to whom you have to pay, your trade creditors, your expenses creditors, and any other kind of current creditors. So if suppose your current asset is say 100 crore, your current liability is say 50 crore, so you are considered to be 1:2. 2 ratio of current ratio is 2, which is considered to be very good. But if the current ratio is only 1.2, 1.3, then it means any time you might have a liquidity problem. A little mismatch in realization of your debt and stock, may affect your liability repayment plans. In current ratio, we can have one more ratio, which is known as acid test ratio or a liquid ratio, or you can say very current ratio. You can call it even quick ratio. There we don't include the inventory into the current assets because inventory may not be realized immediately. But all other current assets like cash and bank balances, short-term marketable securities, debtors and receivables are included in the current assets, and liability remains the same. So it becomes a acid test ratio. This ratio, even if you have 1.2 or 1.3, it is considered good. It means current to current, very liquid. So you may not go into any mismatch.
As a layman, if I see an annual report, how do I make a judgment from seeing capital structure?
Capital structure, as I said, depends on the size of the company, on the activity of the company. Lesser capital does not mean that the company is bad, or higher capital does not mean it's a good company. Structure means how much is equity, how much is preference shares, and how the capital is properly structured. That is what shows that the company is sound, lesser sound, or bad.
How to judge reasonableness of stock price like EPS or PE multiple?
You asked again a very good question. EPS and PE multiple in the current context is very, very important, and it is mainly applicable to all the listed companies. What is an EPS? Full form is earning per share. If a company has say 1 crore share of rupees 10 each, it means its capital is 10 crore, number of shares 1 crore. This is one thing, we keep it aside. Now you come to the profit. So the profit, net profit of the company after depreciation, after interest, after income tax, what is finally left for an investor in that company? So on 1 crore number of shares, that is 10 crore of capital, if the profit is say 10 crore, it means EPS becomes 10. One share earns 10 rupee, because total number of shares were 1 crore. And the company has made a net profit of 10 crore. So earning per share becomes rupees 10. Now this earning per share of rupees 10, you compare with the peer companies. Whether in the similar kind of company, in the similar segment, in similar sector, similar size, whether mid corp, large corp, corporate or a small SME, whether 10 rupees EPS, generally a 10 rupees EPS is considered reasonably good. So this is a question of EPS. EPS can be even 1 rupee. If a profit is negative, EPS can be negative. If the profit is good, EPS can be higher. In some of the larger company, big companies, EPS is 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 50 rupees. Companies like big companies, I don't want to name any company for that matter, but they have even 100 EPS, 120 EPS. So this is the earning per share, which shows how much a shareholder is getting from that company in 1 year. Even though it remains in the company, he doesn't get physical money from the company, but he feels, I hold 100 shares and I made, it means my company on those 100 shares this year made 1000 rupees, 10 rupees per share. So this is EPS. Now EPS should always be related to the market price. That is known as PE ratio, price to earning ratio. Now in this example we have seen that EPS was rupees 10. Now suppose if this stock price is say 100, it means that company stock is running at a multiple of 10 on EPS. So 10 multiple, it means for 10 years continuously if it makes the same profit and same EPS, you are paying the value even today itself of 100. But then you compare now with other companies, that whether a multiple of 10 is right. If some other company is running at a multiple of 20 and if both the companies looks good, the management look good, then you should sell that 20 multiple company and buy the stock of this 10 multiple company if other thing remains the same. I don't advise and I don't say and I don't advocate also that the lesser the P multiple it's always good, but you have to compare with the peers. And in case of the industrial company, the commodity companies, the P multiple can be lower. In case of the brand building companies, the pharma companies, the software companies, the P multiple can be high. But then you have to compare only with the company which is in the same industry. So that is the price to earning. P is very, very prevalent, important, and in day-to-day life we use it.
What is enterprise valuation and why is it important?
See, enterprise valuation comes in picture only when you are taking a huge chunk in that company or you want to acquire that company or purchase that company. For a small shareholder, enterprise valuation is not that significant as the EPS and price earning ratio, price earning multiple. Enterprise value means what this company, if it is sold as it is, can fetch, which includes its market cap, add debt to it, debtors, the debt which is taken. Suppose the market cap of a company is 1000 crore, 500 crore debt it has taken. So his enterprise value becomes 1500 crore, because if you take, you have to pay 500 crore and 1000 crore you have to pay to the shareholders. So enterprise valuation, while taking, you have to take lot of things into consideration. You have to take again the same thing I said, how much the brand which has been built by the company is important, the patents and the copyrights are important, how many years the company has been, whether it is in the consumer durable goods, whether it is targeting its product to the consumers, or whether it is an industrial company only which is targeting its product to only a few industry. Lot many things are to be considered while deciding the enterprise valuation. And once an enterprise valuation is decided, this is divided by the number of shares and per share value comes. Many times we see that the share current price is only rupees 100, but when somebody is acquiring, he is paying even 200 rupees because he has seen the enterprise valuation much higher than the market cap of the company today. He knows the value. Whereas an individual shareholder, for him, that other benefits of that enterprise may not be that important. For him, only the TPS is important, the dividend is important, and the valuation is important, which is as per the market cap.
What would you advise to a small investor?
My advice to a small investor always has been buy when all others are selling and sell when others are buying. Always see inherent value in the stock. Don't go by the hearsay or this market rumors. See the fundamentals of the company. Fundamentals means the management, the style of functioning of the management. I would any time advocate to invest in a company which belongs to Tata's or Kumar Mangalam Birla, Aditya Birla group. I may not do so in some of the other management company, even though the company looks good to me. So the management is very important. The product, the segment, another thing, the market share. Like when Aditya Birla Group comes in anything, they want to be maximum number 1, 2 or 3 in the market. So how much market share this company is commanding? What is the premium on its products? The branding, all these things have to be seen. So if you are fundamentally sure the management is good, consistent, conservative, do invest in that company and also see the product segment like say pharma, FMCG, very defensive. So whenever they are low, you get into those stocks. You may not get very high returns, but at the same time you can be safe. So do not go on market rumors. Do not hope to multiply your money in a day or two. Be an investor. Let me tell you, equity investment is the best class of investment in the world, provided you are disciplined and just don't go as per the rumors or the operators in the market. Thank you.